Peanut Jr.'s mind flew back to the countless time loops he had lived through. One object that was ever present but to which he never paid attention was the looming shadow of the mountain he and He Xuan had crossed on their way to Puki Village. Since he had always stayed within a relatively short distance of Puki Shrine, the location of the mountain hadn't caught his attention. Yet as he looked at it now, he could say for certain that it was not where it had been when he and Daddy Xuan had first arrived. What did this mean? Could it be connected with the time loop somehow? Peanut Jr. had vague knowledge of a mountain spirit that could change its location without humans or ghosts seeing it move. Something nagged at the corners of his mind, but he couldn't quite put the pieces together. He was still puzzling over everything when he met up with Aiming in the woods for a post-mortem of their failed plan. Aiming's eyes were sullen as he paced back and forth at their meeting spot. Before Peanut Jr. had time to write a single character in the dirt, Aiming had produced a small wooden carving of a cultivator from his pocket. It was astonishingly well done, complete with a third eye carved into its forehead. Aiming silently placed the doll on the ground before transforming into a scimitar and cleaving the likeness cleanly in two. He switched back into his human form and looked into Junior's eyes pointedly. No, you can't kill him," Peanut Jr. scribbled out hastily. "We still need Heaven's Eye for the rest of our plan." Aiming sighed in frustration and folded his arms. "It's not time to give up yet. I have an idea." Peanut Jr. conveyed his thoughts to Aiming, all the while wondering about the mysteriously transient mountain in the back of his mind. After completing the planning session, Peanut Jr. returned to Puki Shrine to cultivate in the burnt remnants of chicken spirit soup that were still stuck to the insides of the pot. This time, his mind was so busy pondering over the discoveries of the day that he never did drift off to sleep. Peanut Jr. found himself surrounded again by fabric. A slight vibration entered his ears, like the scraping of porcelain against wood. What was that sound? Poking his head out of He Xuan's pocket, Junior peered down at the origin of the noise. Dangling from Daddy Xuan's waist was a polished narwhal horn flask, the cap of which had come loose and was dangling to the side. Peanut Jr. stared. He had known about the narwhal horn flask since before the first loop. The cap had come open when He Xuan had bumped against the wall as he hurried to hide in Puki Shrine. All at once, the implications of this landed on Peanut like a ton of bricks. Narwhals were creatures famed for their legendary abilities. To eat the flesh of one was said to confer eternal life on the eater. Potions made from their blood and fat could cure any illness, stopping time in one's body and restoring them to a state of perpetual youth. A potion with the power to alter time. A mountain spirit with the ability to manipulate space. Peanut Jr.'s head ached. He needed to transform into his human form so he could process all of this information more fully. For now, he just knew that for some reason, the loop had begun at the same time the cork was removed from the narwhal potion's lid. Maybe putting that cork back on the bottle was the key to closing the loop. Could it be that simple? Peanut Jr. was finally jolted from his thoughts as the rice barrel lid wobbled shut over He Xuan's head. No time to lose. If he was going to figure out how to get Daddy He Xuan and He Xuan together, he needed to get to work now. Diving out of He Xuan's pocket, Junior eyed the still open flask at his master's side. Well, not like there's anything to lose. Lifting the cork with a fin, he carefully stuffed it back into the flask. He paused for a beat. Nothing felt any different. The only way to tell whether it had worked would be to go through the rest of the day and see if things repeated. Hopping out of the barrel, he changed into his human form. His part in the current plan was very similar to the last loop. With the composure of a seasoned actor, he drew Moo King and Archie into Puki Shrine.
Perfect. Bring in more pork legs next. The boar spirit wiped sweat from his forehead. No, Bulk! Bring more salt! The chicken spirit was interrupted as a heavenly official in a general's uniform burst through the doorway. Moo King, what the hell is this supposed to mean? Feng Shen held up an effigy of himself in one hand. The lace-trimmed bridal robes clothing the figure were almost as red as his face. Shi Queen Shen hurried through the doorway behind him. Oh, come now. Surely there must be some explanation for this. Besides, being a woman isn't all that bad anyway. Moo King sneered back at Feng Shen. When his eyes landed on the figure, he couldn't help but let out a snorting laugh. Feng Shen immediately let loose a palm strike. The strike missed its target, and the rice barrel behind Moo King exploded into splinters. A dark-robed figure fell from the debris and landed in a puddle on the floor. He Xuan looked up in a daze, his eyes meeting She Queen Shen's. It's you, She Queen Shen stuttered as he instinctively took a step backward. Another human burst through the doorway and slammed into She Queen Shen. I've got you now. Don't think you can fool this eye, you evil swine. Heaven's Eye panted for breath as he leveled a finger at Archie. Swine? Who you callin' swine? The boar spirit snorted in disdain. Heaven's Eye stared in shock at the boar spirit before quickly readying a palm strike. Unfortunately, he was no faster than in any of the other loops. The boar spirit caught on to what he was about to do and snorted with rage. With hooves clanking sharply on the floorboards, he charged towards Heaven's Eye. The scene seemed to play out in slow motion as the cultivator's eyes widened millimeter by millimeter. With the grace of a gust of wind, he leapt swiftly out of the way, revealing the lame She Queen Shen who had been standing behind him. The boar spirit tried to stop, but it was all in vain as his body barreled forward. Peanut Jr.'s eyes squeezed shut as the sound of sharp tusks sinking into flesh filled the room. I didn't mean to, the boar spirit quavered with shock as he withdrew his tusks. Crumbled on the ground lay a black-robed figure. Ming Xuan! She Queen Shen rushed forward to cradle the bleeding He Xuan in his lap. In the last moment, he had shielded She Queen Shen with his own body. The great calamity had been run clean through. Hang in there, Ming Xuan. The god-turned-mortal pulled down He Xuan's robes to reveal his pierced chest. He pressed both hands against the wound as if to stop the bleeding, his panic-addled mind not registering that there was no blood.
Peanut Jr.'s forehead wrinkled. Daddy He Xuan was a ghost king who had died centuries ago. Not only did he not have blood to bleed, but a little wound like this would do nothing to slow him down. Why then was he slouching on the floor and turning his face pale as if he were on the verge of crumpling into dust? A sob escaped He Xuan's lips as he struggled to tear off a portion of his own robes to plug the wound. However, this was no easy task for him, with his bad arm and already poor strength. He could only tug at the fabric ineffectually. He Xuan reached up to place his hand over He Xuan's. He tisked as he ran his fingers upward over the bones that had healed improperly. I brought you something for this, you know. With a wince, he reached his other hand to touch the narwhal horn flask. This is a potion made from the body of a narwhal. It is said to have the ability to cure any illness. It can cure any illness? He Xuan cut him off hurriedly. In that case, let's use it on you right now. He snatched up the flask and fiddled with the cork. Peanut Jr.'s heart leapt into his chest. Ah, no, stop. Before Jr. could react, He Xuan reached a hand up to stop He Xuan. No. What do you mean, no? He Xuan's voice trembled. I brought it here for you. I was intending to give it to you later, but He Xuan stared at him in shock. You? He closed his moistening eyes and shook his head. How can you do this? My brother and I. You've been hurt so much because of me. He Xuan's gaze bore up into him. A savage smile spread across his face, tinged with hunger. And only you can make it better. I can make it better? He Xuan looked puzzled. What do you mean? He grabbed his face with both hands and pressed their lips together. He kissed him passionately, deeply, like a starving man tasting food for the first time in his life. He Xuan let out a squeak of surprise moments before his body was covered by He Xuan's. The great calamity's firm chest was miraculously healed as it pressed against the man beneath him. Ming, He Xuan, he let out the muffled words as he reciprocated the kiss. Peanut Jr. felt his face growing hot. Something told him that whatever was about to happen next was not for the eyes of children. He quietly backed out of Puki Shrine and left to find Eming. Nice carving work, he wrote in a patch of dirt. Eming nodded as he accepted the compliment. Carving effigies was his specialty after all. The two of them played together all through the night and watched the sun come up the next morning. Right as Xiaolian emerged to tidy the shrine, a mountain spirit arrived to present a gift in honor of the new Puki Shrine. Peanut Jr. finally went to look for Daddy He Xuan. He found him and He Xuan half submerged in the oversized pot of chicken spirit soup. He Xuan was terribly disheveled and bore numerous small bite marks on his skin. His steps were shaky as He Xuan helped him down and onto the floor.
The first full step he took almost landed him squarely on the ground. Seeing this, He Xuan's brow furrowed, and his hand reached for the narwhal horn flask by his side. The flask was suddenly yanked away by a pair of small hands. He Xuan looked down into the boy's face. Peanut Jr.? The bonefish boy clutched the flask securely behind his back. After recovering from his shock, He Xuan reached for the flask. "Give that to me." Peanut Jr. shook his head fervently. Dipping his finger into the chicken soup, he wrote a single word on the floor: "Home."